always enjoyed talking with Drew Smith here, and our partnership goes back a couple of decades, so we've been at this for quite a while now. And like last year, we wanted to really showcase our partnership and give you kind of an outlook for the winter season ahead. So specifically, let's take a look at the year-end review of precipitation and how we are currently looking in terms of fuels and drought, as well as the fire weather outlook. And again, some highlights of our key products and services, including the Red Flag Warning Program, just to give everybody a refresher. And then some very important tools that we have that can be kind of take-home tools for those who are new to the audience today. And then finally, Drew's going to kind of summarize our fuel and fire behavior outlook. So some of the key players here, this is kind of a one-stop reference for you. And a couple of key things to note is that top phone number there under my name is at 805-988-6626. That's a critical phone number that if you don't have that and you want to contact our office, that's a dedicated 24-hour number to our office. Okay? You don't want to give that out to the general public. That's just for you guys, for the fire community. Dr. Ariel Cohen is our meteorologist in charge, and he's here today. And he's been here for a little over 1 year now. And then recently hired is our new warning coordination meteorologist. Some of you have probably worked with Eric Bolt for many years. He retired, and now James Brotherton will be taking over and should be arriving sometime this summer. And for those of you who've been on fires with Rich Thompson, he's our incident meteorologist. So many of you have probably worked with Rich over the years as well. Okay, so as we all know, it's a very wet season again, 2 years in a row. And we did quite well not only locally here in Southern California, but the map on the left, the green area, showing you how broad the above normal rainfall was. Everywhere in green is above normal. And the yellow areas are below normal, but those were limited mostly to the Sierras. On the right-hand panel is the temperature profile, the temperature anomaly from the past season. Again, we're looking from October to March of this year. And you can see the yellows and oranges are areas that were above normal. So really the whole state was above normal temperatures. Just a couple snapshots of rainfall. Downtown Los Angeles, look at that, 25 inches of rain this season, compared to normal, which is about 13.79. And further north, Santa Barbara Airport, it's very similar, 25 inches as well up there. In terms of the Sierra snowpack, I know everyone's always concerned about that. And again, did very well. If you look at the right-hand number, anywhere from about 100 to 120% of normal for seasonal snowfall in the Sierra. So another good season for them. In terms of the drought, this is where we were last year on the left. Okay, you can see things were already starting to improve greatly last year, and further improvement came this year, of course, with our heavy rains. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about is El Nino versus La Nina. And many of you probably heard that we were in a very strong El Nino pattern, and that led to the heavier rainfall that we saw across Southern California. So for those of you who aren't aware, when we look at El Nino, that's a warmer than normal waters in the Eastern Pacific, specifically the Equatorial Pacific. I think this works here. Right in this region here, you see where the orange and red colors? That's what generates that heavier precipitation zone that sometimes sets up for Southern California. So that was the El Nino that we saw last winter that helped generate those rains. Now what's going to happen is the climate models are projecting that we're going to gradually transition out of El Nino into what we call a more neutral phase of water temperature. And eventually, if you can see how these lines start to progress downward below zero, anything up here is positive, that's El Nino signature. And the models are actually going negative, so that's the La Nina signature. That's what the climate models are projecting. So first, by the summer, we should be into a weak La Nina, and then they're saying that it could be progressively getting a little bit stronger as we move into winter. So why is that important? La Nina in general favors, doesn't guarantee, but favors a drier than normal pattern for Southern California. So while we're at a kind of a slower start to fire season this year, if we get into a drier winter next year, that could help set the stage for 2025. So this is the predictive services outlook. This was as of April 1st. And I just looked at the most recent one yesterday that they put out. It's a very similar story. Large fire potential stays full of normal through the early summer. Okay? No big surprises there. And they're highlighting the same things here: weakening El Nino, transitioning to a La Nina by the summer, and then next year, or next winter, a progressively stronger La Nina type signature. So these charts are also put out by the Climate Prediction Center. So the Weather Service focuses in the short term, out the next 7 days. We also have a Climate Prediction Center that looks at the outlooks for the next 3 months. And this is the seasonal temperature outlook specifically for July, August, and September. So during the summer months, no big surprise, the West Coast is dominated by above normal temperature probability. That's been the case for the last few seasons. And then in terms of precipitation, very dry typically in July, August, September for California, and there's no big signature there. In fact, there's no big signature for any kind of significant monsoonal surge. It's actually showing a lower probability there, or monsoonal. So as far as some of the tools, and this is where the partnership really comes in, over the years, Drew has been foundational, as well as LA County, LA City, and all of our fire agencies across Southern California that we work with, Santa Barbara County, Ventura County. This has been great teamwork. And part of what we want to advertise is what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, it's not just us pushing out a product. It's all the training, it's the teaching of classes, it's the partnership that goes on during big events. And that can take the form of special conference calls. We'll talk about the 1 p.m. conference call and how important that is. But also we do webinars for these really big winter storm events, as well as partner email briefings, direct phone calls. How many times have I called in Drew over the years, in the last 20 years? Probably hundreds of times that we've had direct contact. And I try to do that with the key players, the key decision makers of each agency. And sometimes that's where you know, some of the most important information is shared, not just us giving it to them, but vice versa. And that's something that we want to make sure everyone's aware of, is how important that direct communication is. And then finally, the on-site support. For many years, it was all about the incident meteorologist program, and that's a very important part, but we've also expanded that in the last few years, and that's called office deployment. And so meteorologists such as Kristen here, myself, other meteorologists who are not IMEDs can also now be deployed on-site. And Ariel was instrumental during the winter season, where he went out and provided direct support during some of the major winter storms to LA City, Merced, and okay? So the 1 p.m. conference call. So this is something that's been really successful in our office over the years. And in addition to the 8:30 GAC call, so think of the GAC call as kind of being that global call that covers all of Southern Central California, all the weather forecast offices, all the IMEDs, predictive services. So I think of that as kind of a broad call where we can get a lot of office coordination taken care of. But then we want to zero in just on our 4-county area. Our 4 counties are LA, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo. So by having our own call, we can really zero in on the details of our area and talk about not only the weather, but that's where Drew will come in. I always lead in with Drew right after I talk and say, hey, what's the latest on the fuels and fire behavior? And he'll give that aspect of it as well. And then we merge that information, the weather and the fuels, and if it's a red flag situation, we take both parts as being critical information and determining if we need to do red flag warning. After the call, we also send out fire notes. And if you'd like to be added to our call, if you're in our 4-county area, you can just email me, david.gomberg@noaa.gov, and we'll get you added to the list there. Oh, and also I should mention that the second to the last bullet there is important. Not just for fire weather events, we've really expanded over the years to include major winter storm events or even high wind events that aren't fire weather related. So kind of think of it now as all hazards. Okay, it's not just strictly during fire season. Okay, just to review the red flag criteria, sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. First of all, fire weather watches are issued when you have about 48 to 72 hour lead time and you have at least 50% confidence of red flag conditions. And then a red flag warning is when you have 80% confidence or greater, and usually the lead time on that is about 24 hours in advance. And what are the criteria? Well, first, if the criteria number one says if you have sustained winds 25 miles an hour or greater, or gusts to 35, and you have an RH of 15% or less, and those wind and RH criteria overlap for 6 hours or more, that's what triggers our red flag criteria. Or second, if you have RHs down to 10% or less, so very dry air mass, then you only need winds at 15 or gusts to 25, duration again in 6 hours or more. And then the thing is, if you have a shorter duration event, let's say it's only a 2 or 3 hour overlap, we'll call that brief critical fire weather conditions. And if it's approaching red flag but not quite there, we call that elevated. So those are just 3 different categories that you'll see in our messaging and our headlines. And then finally, widespread dry lightning events and forecaster discretion might be a situation where you have like a strong Santa wind event where your RHs are a little bit marginal. You're not quite getting 15%, but you still want to invoke a red flag because of the high winds or perhaps very dry fuels. So one other great partnership that occurred the last couple of years that I want to highlight was LA County and LA City's involvement with us, as well as Ventura and Santa Barbara. They all helped us reconfigure our fire weather zones. And the advantage of that was to give more site-specific details to our fire weather planning forecast, but also during red flag warnings. Okay, the more you can zero in on the zone, that's very important because you don't want to overwarn an area that's not windy. So the more we can subdivide our zones. So for example, right down in here, we used to have that LA coastal zone where you have this inland area, the beach area, Palos Verdes, and Malibu. That used to be all the way one zone. So when we had the red flag, it would light up that whole zone. We know that in most cases, the wind is only blowing in that Malibu corridor. So now we can just highlight that area and be more specific. So I think it's a great service. And Drew and Dan Curry, LICD, was instrumental in helping us redefine those zones. So another big thing that fell out of the red flag program in the last few years was what we call red flag warning, particularly dangerous situation. And that was just to highlight the most urgent red flag events. Okay, we all know that all red flags are not created equal. Some are the really high events, right? I think we can all know, like the Thomas Fire, Woolsey Fire, October 2007. Those are some of the major type events that might fit into like a PDS type category. So think of it like severe weather. When you have severe weather, tornado, PDS, this was like the equivalent of fire weather, PDS. Just to give people in the community and fire agencies a little extra sense of urgency of how dangerous this could be. And you can see on the right, these are the criteria. Okay? Definitely much higher than your normal red flag. You need sustained 35 or gusts to 60, that's damaging gusts there at 60 miles an hour, combined with single-digit RHs, combined with critical live fuel moistures of 60% or less. And to get all 3 of those together is very difficult when you go back through the data. And you only need 3 hours or more, but it's very challenging to get those to overlap. So it's supposed to be a rare event, which it is. And it's not a new product. It's actually embedded within the red flag warning. It's just a top bullet at the top of the product. And the nice thing is now is that we standardized it for all of California. So every California office now has the same type of philosophy. Okay?
On Mars.
And then also, another nice tool that's really helped the collaboration is with satellite technology and the advancement of webcams, social media. We have these huge situational awareness screens in our office that we can key on media reports. We're getting the fire information very quick now. And because of that, we can put out spot forecasts in advance, what we call proactive spots. And so many times, even before Drew picks up the phone and requests a spot for LA County, we'll already have it drafted up because of this new technology. And so it just gets a little extra lead time and gets it in the hands because we know that first hour, that's the last thing we want to worry about. So we'll just get out ahead of the curve here. So to get to these tools on the internet, if you haven't been to our page before, it's weather.gov/Los Angeles. And I'll draw your attention to the fire weather icon right there. And once you go to the fire weather icon, that's what will open up the fire weather page. And specifically, you can see over here the spot weather forecast page right here on the far left. Your forecast, which would be your fire weather planning forecast, your red flag warning, and your train forecast would all be under that tab. And then over here is the tools. So for example, Fire Weather Super and Fire One page are over there under tools. So to get to Fire Weather Super, that's where you would click right there. And how many of you have used Fire Weather Super before?
Those,
Okay, excellent. And so for those who haven't used it, this will be the most important thing to take home today. Okay? So this is a great tool that was developed within our office, and it's expanded not just across all of California, but across the whole country. And the idea behind it was, can you find the observations in your areas when we're in a red flag warning that are capturing the duration of how many hours that particular station is in red flag. That's what the red areas represent. And the yellow represents areas that are getting close to red flag, just to help your situational awareness. So again, think of that as your elevated fire weather efficiency. So the first category right under here, under duration, is the most important. That's telling you how many hours of red flag you have. So again, what is the duration unit for red flag warning? 6 hours, right? So when I go back and do verification, I'm looking for the observations that have 6 hours or greater for red flag warning. Okay? So other nice features you can do with this is if you go to the tab right here, in the upper right, the 3 bars, if you open that up, you can go to any of these top parameters. So let's say you want to know what the highest wind speeds. You can click on the blue bar under wind, and it will sort for you the highest wind speeds. Or let's say you want the lowest RH, you could click the RH. So what I do, I just have one column with my highest winds, and I have another column with my lowest RHs, and that thing's monitoring all day long. Every 5 minutes it's updating. Then you can also mouse down over a particular station, and it will give you a 24-hour readout for that station. You can also click, again, the 3 bars in the upper right opens up many more options, and you can do things like archive. You can look back and study a particular event. You could turn on different networks. It defaults to National Weather Service and RODS, but the utility sites are really nice to look at with Edison and PG&E, so you could turn on the utility there. You can also put it in map mode. So instead of looking at it in tabular format, you should look at it as in a map format like that. And that shows you the yellow and red areas. Again, the red are the areas that are hitting the red flag threshold. So an important point to remember, just if it's turning red, it doesn't necessarily mean you need a red flag warning. It's just telling you that your first hour is being achieved. But again, you need that duration of 6 hours or more to be hitting red flag duration. Oh, and one other thing on that is the size of the circle is important. That tells you that there's a greater wind speed. So it's just another situational awareness tool as well. Another great sign of collaboration. This man right here came up with this idea. At one of our outreach meetings, we do outreach meeting once a year. We'll have another one in June where we'll bring LA County, LA City, and Ventura together. And we always talk about how we can improve things. One of the ideas that Drew came up with about 5 years ago was, hey, wouldn't it be nice to come up with a one-stop page instead of going to various websites, instead of going to the Weather Service or Predictive Services or to Storm Predictions there or to the various county fire agencies. I want to have one page where it has all the most important links on one site. So we went back to the drawing board and our office put this together. So that's an example of the importance of the relationships and the collaboration that's getting these new ideas coming about. And finally, the mobile site page. This is everything that we talked about off of our website pretty much. You could get on your mobile device as well. And I'll share this presentation so I can just go big there. So again, weather.gov/Los Angeles is our website. Key phone number is 805-988-6626. And one other example of strong partnerships that I want to highlight today was something that just unfolded yesterday. And we're proud to announce that Dr. Ariel Cohen is going to, our meetings all in charge, is going to come up with this announcement. And this man right here, it started with him. LA County, working with LA City and the National Weather Service.
I know it's surprising, I know. We did.
I was close to about a year and a half at the National Weather Service as the meteorologist in charge for Los Angeles, and we've had 50, 100, 1,000-year precipitation events. Some of the most historic extreme weather, that this area has had since most of us can even remember, even well before that. But what I've noticed over my time here, unique of all the other offices I've worked at, and I've been at a bunch of other offices, and really a familiarity throughout the National Weather Service, is the relationship here between the National Weather Service and the fire agencies. All of you is the top. It's top of the line for the entire National Weather Service. This is a testament to the work that Dave Gomberg and the other folks at the National Weather Service, and all of you, the fire agencies, Bruce Smith, everyone at LA County, LA City, and all the other fire departments have put into making sure that we have the communication, the established trust, all the work that goes to cultivate relationships, making all of that come true so that we're all collectively saving lives, protecting property. And the relationship here between National Weather Service, Los Angeles, Oxnard Fire Agency is the role model example for the entire National Weather Service, if I could concede. So just a round of applause. Because of this relationship, and really highlighting how important it is, we have been able to take advantage of an opportunity that recently arose with our downtown Los Angeles weather station, which has been for the past 25 years or so, going back to the late 90s, housed at the University of Southern California, USC campus. And over that time period, we've learned a lot about the very different microclimates that we know. Even if you were driving up here this morning, you probably saw a bunch of different microclimates between the ocean-influenced air mass and some of the air above that. And we know that there's so much variability from place to place. And what we've learned over time is that the observations as taken from the USC campus, and we really appreciate all of the years of support that we had at USC, weren't quite representative of what's going on in the core of downtown Los Angeles. That's because that USC campus, it's closer to the Pacific Ocean, and so it has more of that maritime type influence, a little bit cooler, a little bit more humid, and we're trying to characterize downtown Los Angeles. There's a whole lot of socioeconomic impact in that area. It's closer to the foothills, where we have a lot more fire spread potential within the brush nearby, and there's really not a whole lot of observations that we would need to be assessing in order to determine the fire weather threat, the spread rates, the direction, and etc. in downtown LA. So this opportunity arose, and through the relationships with LA County, LA City as well, working with Drew, working with Guy, we were able to very quick fashion to be able to have the site of our weather station for downtown LA moved to the Frank Hotchkin Memorial Center, right by Dodger Stadium. And this is a very pivotal change in our observations of the second largest city in America, because now we're going to be better representing the weather and climate of downtown Los Angeles from a site that is representative of what's a little bit away from the marine influences and more representative of what's going on there. We're going to have higher observational density of the weather conditions going on, where brush fires can be a little bit more frequent, and there's potential higher impact in that area. And so our opportunities to really get ahead of these major fire weather events will be able to improve from this very quick but fundamental shift in our observations because of the relationships that we have built over decades and decades and decades. And so this change is going to be coming up on May the 20th is when the switch officially goes. We're going to have a media commemoration event in early June as well. And really excited, you know, to have this opportunity there. Actually, going back to 1877, we've had observations for downtown LA when our lead meteorologist, Dave Bruno, has done so much research to really help us cite this in a point that's more representative of downtown LA weather conditions where it had been sampling for over a century prior to his move to USC. So thank you to all of you. Thank you so much, Drew and Guy and Dave, for all of your leadership and being able to make this happen. You're right.
I'll tell you how it really happened. And Dave calls me and tells me I have to move this weather station from USC. And so I called Guy and said, hey, I'm on it. I said, hey, Guy, USC said they got to move their shit. They're building a parking structure, and we put it in Frank's place. And Guy said, I'm on it. That's actually a lot more eloquently than I do. Okay, so with the weather service and all that stuff, well, what does it actually mean? And Chief Tripp, who's actually on the leading edge of child abuse with me, so I'm glad he didn't do any of the bio. So with what does all this mean? We have all this intelligence. I think I'd like to make it a little bit of a learning tool, because in the absence of some of those weather variables, how does it look for us and what does it mean? So we already know what the outlook looks like, so we thinking, hey, is it above normal? Is it below normal? We know what the precip does. We know in Southern California, largest fire growth, bottom line is Mother Nature turns on the fan. And when that comes, and we can target that through September 1st through Christmas. We all know when we've had rainy Halloweens and windy Halloweens, right? We can all think of that. But let's put some stuff into perspective, because we really need to think in the absence of Santa Ana winds, in the absence of a wind-driven fire environment. This just gives us what will cause large fire growth when we're into a high precip thing. We have green up everywhere, live fuel moistures are through the roof. The pines haven't even begun to brown out yet in a lot of areas. So what does that mean? Where are my prescribed fire managers in the room? This is your view. Okay, so we know that annual grass, this is where they have an abundance of it. There's going to be 1 to 5 tons per acre throughout. We still have all this stuff because this is the third year of above average rainfall. If it hasn't burned, it's still out there. So we still have that fuel bed. Without this stuff, you can't get large fires unless you have some other anomaly that makes it happen, which is wind, or old growth vegetation. This is the key to everything. So how we look at our curing that's going to happen, we'll just brush it. You know, it's going to start in our inland areas in early June. We'll start seeing that transition. So the learning tool, looking where it turns to green, starts getting the purple, then it starts going to brown. And everything else will follow that. So remembering some of those key points on what you're seeing and how you put it into a direct relationship of what your potential is, and then what does it mean when fire's moving across the landscape, and how do you categorize it so you can set your tactical objectives. So where are we at today with our dead fuels? Remember, we have our time-lapse fuels. The ones we know is grass, the 10, 100, 1,000. So we're above average for this year. Here's a sexy little chart that measures ERCs. And so flipping this thing around, we put a little blue dot around it over here. And so we're showing that we're well above normal on our precip. What is that going to reflect to? That we're well below the average for energy release component. So generically, your energy release component, if it catches on fire, how much fire energy is coming out of the dead fuel bed, balanced between the 100, you know, and the 10-hour fuel bed, 1,000-hour fuel bed. What's that balance? Mother Nature's sponge, right? How's it affected it? So we have to look at trends. And we have some benchmarks, and one of those that I use is basically if it gets over 50 under ERCs in the South Coast. If that's when you know you start kicking up, as things follow. If it gets to 50, that means Mother Nature has to give you, whether it's dew point, whether it's precip. Mother Nature has it, you're getting long daylight hours. So those fuels dry up, Well, when they do, well, of course your grass is already dry, so that's when we start having that potential for initial attack fires to increase. So, truthfully, with live fuel moistures right now, fire's not going to move across the landscapes if live fuel moistures are above 150, and it doesn't care if it's 250. It's not going to move. If you have green grass and you don't have something else to push it, it's just not. So this is kind of where we're at, and Sammy's just doing it. Probably going, where did I get this chart? I made it up. Because you haven't done it yet. Because you're having your big boots and you're walking through the mud. Exactly, right? So, but just to categorize on this chart, as things I want you to take away is when does all these things balance out? We talked about ERCs at 50. We talked about fine fuel moisture content, 10 hours. But your live fuels, and I want you to think about backing fire, flanking fire, and head fire. We all know if your backing fire moves on you aggressively, it's got to happen under wind or vegetation that has a very vulnerable state for its move because it's dry. And that doesn't happen on the routine until your live fuel moistures get at or below 80. So remember our dynamic fuel beds in our shrubs. They have a bunch of live in it. They got a lot of older stuff depending on what the H class is at. But when your live fuels get to about 80 is when you go, ooh, fire's backing on me pretty well. You know it's going to go like gangbusters with head fire. But when it gets to the tipping point for me is about 80, and I go, ooh, I want to see how it's reacted on the landscape. That's what I use as a measuring stick on good old-fashioned backcountry brush fire, is how's it moving. So what's the potential as we transition into, because everybody in this room who's still on the job, everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, the 4th of July, we got to staff the world. Well, maybe, but does it lead into that we have potentially 3 days of abnormally hot, dry stuff, has that grass changed and turn into that brown state that's going to give us that initial attack component. So I'm looking at, does this happen when we look at our initial attack days? I use a 3-day window, abnormally hot. I don't care about the wind because we know routinely it's out of the west anyway, right? So you look at those alignment features. And we know that we're in the middle of people doing their defensible states or brush flares, whatever you want to call it, and we have some failures with some of those people doing that. So we are going to have, I feel, an increased potential for initial attack. So we need to categorize initial attack. We need to look at large fire growth. And everybody's large fire growth is different. Every agency is different what they categorize a large fire. Well, that's something to think about. We know that our 1 hour and 10 hours, that's what's going to carry it. Is there slope energy behind it or not? We know that when our 1,000-hour fuels get to 90% or less, and so we have a vulnerable state for it to move across the landscape, then it's up to us, the tacticians, to see what's making it move. And there's only 2 forms, and I talk to this all the time, only 2 forms of energy that move fire across the landscape. If it's slope energy or wind energy. Then you have to categorize how your fire is moving across the landscape. Is it crapping out at the top of the ridge, or is it going to the top of the ridge and mowing downhill? What's causing it? You have to pick it apart factually. So, the reason I bring up this fire, because this is a routine day. This is the Palisades fire that we shared with the city and had a great time. But just look at the weather variables. 1073, mid flame wind speed 3 to 5, wind direction south-southwest. And relative humidity 38%, went to 90% at night. Ended up being a 1,300 acre fire. The dead fuel moisture was 15, probabilities of ignition. If you saw these and today you go, dude, I am not going to have a big fire. And technically, was this a big fire? A 1,300 acre fire for the city is like an average Tuesday. This isn't a big deal. But
It's in a great spot.
it's in a great spot. So we'll talk about the why. It was a full alignment fire. It had wind energy behind it right off the coast. It had slope energy at 45% or greater. Then it had points of solar energy that's going to drive those fuels, hot fuel, cold fuel, basic Campbell prediction system stuff, extended 13 some odd acres. But the offset was, had 50 years plus growth. this same fire wouldn't have happened if something had burned and it had 10 years growth. It wouldn't have happened. You don't have the energy release that comes out of the fuel bed. So when we're looking into this summer, that we all get lured into this Ireland feeling with everything green, is that when those things start tipping, the topography dominated fires, we have a great advantage to combating. But they can be the most challenging because it surprises us, and that's what we don't want to have happen. So, we know that our regional, local forest have, then there's this new, all right, Cliff Flavin tree. What's the name of this bug that's killing the oak trees down?
We saw GSOC.
Yeah, the GSOC, right? That's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. So, and we've seen it before, when we had up in San Bernardino, right when we had the beetles killing all the trees, and they, looked like it was like some Dr. Seuss thing going on up there when they were moving all the trees. And this is the thing. So do some research, because the reason I bring this up is how many timber fires do you go on where it actually doesn't transition to the crown? A lot. But mostly. But when you have that dead standing in a vertical arrangement, it all has 1 hour in it that's hung. It has 10 hours in it. It's got 100 hours that's hung in it. Energy released from surface fire shred, transition to the crown. And how about when we look at the weather forecast and we have a high level wind and we have a 20-foot wind? So what happens when you shoot stuff up into a 20-foot wind stream, and you can have a difference in how many miles an hour depending on your density of your fuel stand? A 40-mile-an-hour wind compared to a 4-mile-an-hour wind at eye level, it makes a difference. So that transition, if we have dead standing coupled with a routine wind at 20 miles an hour or greater, you're going to have some challenges. So just something to think about. Dave talked the weather zones, but this is just for us. So this is something that we're improving on every year. And this is just our weather zones. We have 6 of them, and we share them with LA City Fire Department. So they actually are in LA County, by the way. They forget that sometimes. So we have our weather zones, and so with that, we can go to the fire one. This goes to the fire behavior section. You can go to the fire danger analysis. This just categorizes our 6 fire weather forecast zones, and it gives us a burning index and the associated live fuel moisture. So this is a fire danger element. Fire danger and fire behavior are 2 different things. Fire danger is what's the potential, and the fire behavior is how's it traveling across the landscape. So this is good that we brief our people to. We punch this out every day, and they can go to the Fire One page and just click on the fire danger, LA County burn index, and then this thing gets vomited up there and tells us what it is. So for today, actually, the burning index for the Santa Cruz forecast zone is 51. And what does that mean? Well, we have a pocket card. Everybody on knowing what the potential is and where you're at. This is a great measuring tool. Know it on how to interpret it, and it's which is kind of weird. There's a lot of fire behavior analysts in the room. Has some significant interpretive value if you know what to do with it. And I always say that we have all this information, it's absolutely useless, right, Timmy? Unless you make it useful. We have another story behind that. So what have we done? We know that the BI is 51 for today. What does that do for us? That puts us in this category here. And I think that everybody would agree, if you have with a 51, that your fires would be mainly topography dominated, moderate, slow to moderate rate of spread, and it's going to need the forces of alignment on today under this, what we feel right now. Does everybody agree in the room? That's probably what your fire dynamics are going to be. Yeah, so this helps the interpretive value, besides you doing your Peachy folder skills and saying, oh, the BI is 51. Well, what does that mean? Nobody knows, right? You just go with 51. It's either, well, how does it gauge? Well, this gives an interpretive value to it. And usually once we get into this red section, and it's dancing with the yellow section here, it kind of couples with what you'll see in our forecast zones, which marries significantly to the Weather Service zones. And then it marries to the fire weather snooper where those RAS stations are. You go, ooh, there's no excuse not to be informed nowadays. So when's the last time that we had to go to the regional office, district office to get the fire weather forecast on the fax machine? There's instant information now. Days were a little easier back then, but nevertheless. So this is just a little bit bigger picture of how we use the burning index. It's been ground truth, and it gives a benchmark. When you look at the BI, and you say, ooh, I'm in a range between whatever it is, so 51, we're between 25 and 74. This is what I have to identify. This is what these fires look like. And validate, validate, validate once you get the crews working and you're laying those. So if we're looking June into August for initial attack, 10 to 150 acres, highly probable within the first hour. And just know that in your large fire growth, you're going to have to complement it with a west wind, old growth vegetation, because the color of the smoke tells the story. It tells the story. And you can see how much moisture is within whatever's burning based upon that smoke cost. So looking at in routine days, in more mature fuels, on a season like this, which has been mimicked over 100 years that we can categorize, initially on routine days, we're going to topography-dominated fires, but your wild card's going to be 3 days of drying and normally hot temperature, old growth vegetation. That's what's going to be kind of challenging. So look for those alignments. This is a full alignment fire, so just picking things apart. We've had a wet season and full alignment fire, but look at the color of the smoke. Just tell a story. It'll help you set your tactical priorities. Look at where it's going to realign so that you can take advantage. Because we always catch the fires, we're out of alignment. It's out of wind alignment, slope alignment. So just looking on our initial attack at how things look coastal and inland, these are just on routine days. As we get inland, July through August, we'll start kicking stuff up. You might have 5 acres, you might have 500 acres. You know, we have a lot of dry grass out there that's going to put us in a different place, but large fire growth is going to have to be dependent on a couple other factors. So here, looking at the color of the smoke, topography is driving it. Does anybody think that this is a challenging fire? It's challenging. Is it like, oh my gosh, it's going to the coast? No. Look at the color of smoke. What is it telling you? It's got moisture in it. How it is there, you don't care. We can figure that out. But frame your head around tactically how you look at it. When a lot of us go to fires that either, we're sick in the head, the fire behavior house. But nevertheless, if you're like a unicorn, you do. But I always look at where's it going out on its own. Then I pick apart the why. So remember, just look at those intensity differences and take advantage of that from the head and the flank to the heel. Put that in those topography-dominated fires, routine days, and look at those 3 features. This has a bunch of Cliff Clavin trivia, so don't get lured into, we have, oh my gosh, I'm down. Don't look into, going down, there's something important. So, in the fire behavior analyst community and looking at our weather service IMS and looking at like historical stuff. So don't say, oh, it's a wet season. We can associate a lot of above average rainfall seasons going into the fall with a lot of large fires. A lot of large fires. So we're into that. So in closing, initial attack within 5 to 50 acres are highly probable. Identify they have normally dry weather conditions and targeted old growth vegetation in your area. Remember that, I believe this is somewhat correct, 18, 19, 22, 23 had above average rainfall. And so that's a factor. You can identify the fire's topography or wind dominated and based on actions on further behavior is fine. That's all I got.